Well, what do we got here? Oh, these are Rolf Vector Comp wheels. What do we do with wheels in the shop, you wonder? We say, we'll chew those up and adjust the hubs and whatnot, but what's that mean? Because when these go back behind the wall of mystery in a shop, you don't know what happens to them, do you? Well, let me show you what happens to them and what this thing is used for. What is that? After this.
Welcome to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging out with a guy. Hi, I'm Justin the Guy. Obviously I have a garage shop. Take scary out of used, one bike at a time. If you want to be kept up to date on latest projects and topics, please like and subscribe.
Welcome back to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging with a guy. Hey, I'm Justin the Guy on wheels. It's a really good time. Yeah, dad jokes all day. Absolutely. What does a mechanic do with these guys? You drop them off to be chewed up or to come off the bike itself being chewed, that kind of thing. Well, we're going to talk about that. Also, we're going to talk about the paired spoke Vector Comp wheels. Rolf was a person that made wheels back in the 90s and caught the eye of Trek. And Trek, I don't know, purchased them, acquired them, merged with them, whatever the case may be, used Rolf wheels on their bikes for several years in the process. And the paired spoke system was supposed to cut down oscillation at fast speeds. Well, lo and behold, that caught on fire, as in, a thing to do. And Rolf disappeared from the scene from Trek, but Bontrager made the paired spoke system. So I guess they leased the rights of using it or whatever. I don't know the details of that. Nor here nor there. But Shimano ended up making a paired spoke wheel as well. Bontrager had some issues with some of theirs because they started cracking, as you would see some on my wall. Yeah. In any case, not all of them failed, but some of them, mainly on the rear drive side, had higher tensions, which caused the rim to crack around the spoke nipples. So that's something to look for. On the Rolf, though, they built up the rims pretty substantially that they didn't seem to have any issues. So back to this wheel set. All right, so this one has a flat. This one's not flat, but the gentleman wants new tires and tubes installed, which is great. And we want to take the cassette off to clean it, which it looks pretty shiny and clean because I already cleaned it. And we take the skewers off to clean those too. But we need to take all that stuff off to be able to adjust the hubs. So let's dive into this. First, you want to take the skewer. It's basically a bolt that goes, a nut that goes through. And side note, there's skewer springs. You want the skewer springs to be cone in. That helps the skewer distribute the pressure back and forth. It gives you the wider gap. So when you actually put in the wheel, it actually is easy. Do you need the springs? No. But they are very nice when you're trying to force it up the fork or the dropouts of the rear wheel. But you want to make sure you take these guys off. And typically they're pretty dirty, so you can take them in the sink, light soap and water to wash those off if you want to. And we'll talk about installation of those once we get to that part of reassembling. The cassette. Oh, the mystery of the cassette. You will need two tools, as I'm knocking everything down. You need two tools, which is commonly known as a chain whip and a lock ring remover tool. Come in various shapes and sizes. Park makes a whole bunch of them. Essentially what you want to do is take your chain whip, and what the chain whip is going to do is hold the cassette in place, keep it from rotating. So you put that like so, and then you take your lock ring tool and fit it in a lock ring. Nice and snug now, because you don't want that thing to slip, because sometimes these caps are alloy and you don't want to strip that. So usually you need a lot of leverage, so I go on the floor, but this one's loose. So basically unscrews like so. And you will drop a lock ring tool or lock ring cover at some point. That's it for the chain whip. You will not need that for reinstallation, but you will definitely need the lock ring removal. This basically slides off, and they are keyed, so don't worry too much. You'll be able to put that back on there. like so. But I gotta go find my lock ring. Also a note on the lock ring on most cassettes will have the actual make, Shimano, SRAM, Campanoli, and this is where they usually stamp their model. This one's a 970, which is a 9 speeds, and the level is 70 in the SRAM line. Shimano for a 9 speed would be a CS-6500-ish. This doesn't usually tell you the range. The range of the gears are going to be stamped on the cassette somewhere, like on the actual chainring or cogs, to tell you what the range is on this one. In this case, this guy is a 12, and the range up would be a 26 teeth. So that's how you take the cassette off. All right, next step, well, he wants new tube and tires, so we're going to take the tire off. This one is flat, so we don't have to worry about deflating it. This is what they call a Presta valve. Presta, it's a French thing. Very common on a lot of high-end bikes, if not all of them. The valve cap on the grommet, technically you're not needed, so if you lose those, it's not necessary. They're nice to have though. The grommet holds the valve core straight and the cap keeps it from dust. So you want to push that in so it gets over the edge of the bead of the tire. And then you take your quick stick, tire levers, whatever, slide it underneath to release that bead onto one side, and then proceed to the other side. Sometimes you just use your thumbs to get that to or not. Or you roll it over like so, and you just kind of karate chop it to open up. And they do get sticky over time, so it'll be a little bit harder. So since we're going to be replacing those, we don't need to save them. Do I put the tube and tire on right now? No, I'm going to true this and actually see the hops. So I want this naked as we do true the wheel. So here's the front. This one I do need to release the air because it's still holding air. Valve cap off. Remove the grommet. And a Presta valve has this little bit that unscrews to open and to close. Open it up, unscrew it, so releases air, and that's how you air it up. When you're done, you tighten that back down, and you're sealed and ready to go. In this case, I definitely need to release the air so I can get the tire off. Push the valve core in again, so it doesn't catch up on the bead. Maybe not. So here's a little trick bit, is knocking things down everywhere. Okay, this is Armor All. I do it in bulk. Use a little bit of this. You can spray the inside of the bead here. That helps the tool to get underneath. So if you have a trouble getting the tire off, or getting it on, or getting it to seat, which means popping it into place just right, put a little bit of Armor All in there. That kind of gives a little bit of slickness to it, so you can get those things to do what they're supposed to do without too much of a trouble. You roll this up so you can get your hook of your tire lever underneath, like so. And then notice how smooth that was compared to the other one. Not necessarily to need to do it on all of them, but it does help when you get in those tricky bits and pinches. So in this case, the tube is fine, so I'll save this for the customer. Toss the tire, and then I'll use the new tubes. And he could, if the person wants to use the tube for a spare, he can more than happy to do so. While we're here, we're going to inspect this is the tire tape, or cloth tape, or rim tape. They have several different names to them, but basically this is a high pressure tape. Sometimes it's a piece of plastic that fits in there for like tubeless and so forth. But you want the Velox is the brand that's been around for decades. You want to make sure that tape is intact, and you look and make sure it goes up to both wheel well sides, and not, because there's spoke holes in the rim where you don't want those to scoot over. And if they scoot over with a high pressure, 100 to 110 psi, it's going to cut that tube. Boom, you get a flat. It's called an internal flat. So always when you're changing the tire, flat, or what have you, you want to inspect your rim tape and make sure it's not compromised anywhere, both front and more importantly, the rear, because that's where your rear sits on and it gets a lot of extra weight on there. Therefore, most of your flats, I'd say 2 out of 3 times it's going to be your rear, because that's what you hit, and also the weight of the body of the bike relies on the rear wheel more. So there you go. 101. This particular one, you're looking at hubs and adjustments. What you're really looking for, if it's loose, you want it tight. If it's too tight, like grindy. So what you're trying to find is that perfect medium where it spins smoothly, but it doesn't knock back and forth. This particular one, you need a special tool to actually adjust the hub. This is a cartridge bearing, so it's pressed in on both sides. So it's not a loose bearing, so you're not really too much adjustment needed per se. It just needs to be snug up against those bearings. And when I'm talking about bearings, it's instead of loose bearing, it is a bearing that looks like your traditional skateboard bearing-ish. They come in various different sizes for different hubs. FYI on that. They are stamped on the side if you need to replace them, and then you need tools for that too. But we're not going there. We're just going to inspect and make sure it's smooth and not loose. If they're either or, too tight or too loose, knocking, you'll need to adjust it, or you can take it to the shop and go, hey, adjust these hubs, please. And they will have a la carte adjustment charge for that. So what do we do from here? Well, they go into the truing stand. So let's take a look at that. Voila! The wheel. This is a truing stand. It's used for all various types of wheels and so forth. I have adjustments on an old school one to accommodate 29er wheels, disc, which this one is neither or. So you basically put it in the clamp. And once those hubs, that's the first thing you learn is adjust those hubs. And those hubs that are adjusted, you're good to go. If they're not adjusted and it's loose in the play, you can't true the wheel technically to be perfection. You can try, but I got in a big no-no from the first day I worked at the bike shop. My dad was like, well, what do you do first? Do you adjust the hubs or true the wheel? And I said, you true the wheel? And you're like, nope. I'm like, oh, man. All right, first day of fail at the bike shop and back in 1989. Yeah, that's right. I'm not old. Any case, here we are. So we got the wheel. Well, once we have the hub adjusted so it runs smooth and not loose, there's no play, we need to clean it. I'm all about cleaning and inspecting. So in this case, I have the lithium hyper clean, which is all surface clean. You can use any other kind of cleaners. This one's just a little bit lighter and not aggressive. Works pretty well on all surfaces. So basically I run it through the rim on both sides. I'm just kind of cleaning everything off to get off that dirt. And while I'm doing that, making it pretty, and the decals are all nice, and the rim brake surface is remove the contaminants and so forth, I'm also feeling for imperfections of damage. And when I'm flossing it like so, I'm inspecting the eyelets of the rim where the spoke nipples fit. Yeah, spoke nipples, funny word. And where the spokes go into. So I'm checking and making sure there's no cracks or damage to any of that. So inspecting. This is probably the closest inspection the wheel will ever get. And then I proceed to wiping down the spokes. Why do I wipe down spokes? Well, first, they're dirty. Second, I'm also feeling for spoke tension and imperfections, like if there's a little wobble or something in there, like if it got damaged. Then I go to the non-drive side where I find the hole where the spoke or the Presto valve goes, and I do the other side. This way I can actually physically feel the imperfections with visual confirmation. So you got all that gunk. Then kind of floss the hub, give that all clean. So once I get a good cleaning surface, then I feel like I've inspected and make sure the eyelets of the spokes go through, are not compromised, which you can see these crack here too and have damage. So I think we're in good shape considering the age of this wheel. These were known to be pretty rock solid. Now on to truing. Truing, not going to teach you truing. Truing is a whole art in itself. If you want to play with a truing stand and learn how to true wheels yourself, watch several videos of it. Grab a couple wheels from your local bike shop that are damaged. So when you're messing with the spokes, you'll see how the rim behaves up and down and otherwise. It's a three-dimensional thing. And using a damaged wheel is a great way to start to learn how to adjust and manipulate and seeing how those spoke tensions work. You don't want to use your normal wheel right off the bat because you will find yourself down a rabbit hole and you might damage your rim. Basically, first I check the rim side to side, then I adjust the spoke accordingly to move and manipulate that rim over. Quarter turns at a time. I'm a great proponent of loosening spokes. Instead of, a lot of people that learn how to true wheels or they true wheels just continuously tighten. That's where you get over tightened spokes where it can cause damage to the rim and the spokes could crack and break. These have brass nipples. Sometimes these nipples are alloy. Yeah, I did say that. And the alloy ones over time become more brittle and something to keep an eye for. So when you're using a tool that's steel onto brass, it's a little bit easier, but if those alloy nipples, sometimes they'll crack and crumble right underneath you. So we're straight here, then we check for hops. And basically this is the up and down. And then you have a hop, then you release two spokes at the same time to release the pressure of the wheel to go down, like so. This is pretty good. These wheels and newer ones come from the factory are pretty solid. Back in the day, we had a custom build wheels, and you know, we had to do all those spoke tensions and all that. Nowadays, machines are so dialed in; they do a really good job coming out of the factory. But they're not 100% perfect, but they're a lot better than they used to be. So when you're getting that bike from Canyon or Specialized shipped to you, you may not need to true the wheels. That's where the bike builders of today pretty much just double check it real quick and go through. They're basically seeing if the wheel's been damaged in transportation, not knocking around, not necessarily the build itself. So the wheel is true, it's round, centered, perfectly balanced. No, we don't do that balancing thing like you do with car tires. But there is a spoke tension. Well, there's two other tools. Those gauges, the side to side, and see if the rim is centered to the hub. That's a dishing tool. The other one here is called a chain tensioner. These are high-level tools that you need to learn how to use them proper. That gives you the tensiometer to tension on that. If you've been truing wheels as long as I have, you can basically kind of feel right off by the bat if they're too high or too low. These are a high-tension spoked wheel. These particular ones, because it's paired spoke back in the day, that was their claim to fame, to beef up the rim, a little bit thicker gauge spoke. They lose one or two spokes out of it, so it's not the 32 or 36, down to like the 28. And therefore, you lose a little bit of weight there, but you gain in weight and with beefing it up in strength and oscillation, blah, 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 blah. It sounds pitch, pitch, pitch. The Kool-Aid, that's what was the Kool-Aid back then. Now, what do we do now? Well, technically, you're good to go. That wheel can go back on just fine. But I have a little trick of something I want to show you. I've been using ceramics on bike frames to make them sparkle and polish. And see this pretty blue? Also, this has a UV protectant as well as a coating to help shed water and gunk. And shedding water and gunk off of rims is great because you want to get that stuff off of there because it gets into the brake area surface and so forth, and you want it to get removed. And also, when you rinse the bike off, you want it to shed. Well, right now, it's just this dull finish, and there's no clear coat or anything on there. If you add a ceramic coating, this is from Lithium Ceramic Slam, this little booger, if applied to the rim, will make it shine and more glossy. Just a little bit dab on a very pliable applicator. Will make it shine, also UV protection like I talked about, and also beads water off. So basically you just slide this over the rim and get on the other side. Basically I'm just repeating the same process as when I was cleaning it. And then I floss the inner part between the spokes And yes, I am going to add a little bit to the spokes themselves. Reason being, same kind of concept, cleans them up, makes them slicker, aerodynamic. I need to lose a lot more aerodynamic of me to make that a difference. Basically, it'll cut through that tree limb faster when you hit it, going 45 miles per hour down a road. No, just kidding. Just a little bit goes a long way. You can, what they call stack, basically you put on a coat and then you let it sit and dry for 5 minutes to 2 hours. Reapply the stack, the second layer. Probably don't need to do more than 2. You can do 3 if you want to go crazy. What that does is just build up that layer on it. On these, I just, usually 1 is pretty good. I may go over a second coating while it's still within the 5 minutes just to make sure I covered all the bits. And what I like about these pliable applicators, you can fold them and kind of just floss the inside hub. This is kind of nice too because all the geeky gunk gets into this area right here, especially on the rear wheel. If it has a little bit of a coating on there, it's going to help shed that grease from extra bike chain lube or what have you. If you don't like all that buildup of chain lubes and so forth, try hot wax for your chain lube. It's a whole process. You can get the chains that are pre-waxed. It's been a game changer for me, seeing that. It's actually old tech. Back in the turn of the century, they would use candle wax to wax their chains for like Tour de France and so forth. So races like that. Little sidebar. All right, so when this is dry, it will have a dull coating on it. That is not the final result. That pretty much all ceramics will do that. It'll have like this dullness. Then you have to take a fiber cloth. Let me find my valve hole. Then you can kind of see right off the bat, it's starting to get shiny. So what that tells you, it's going to smooth too. It'll feel a little tack at first, then it'll break away, then it'll get super, super shiny. I mean, look at that wheel. Oh, attention to details. Wow. Now that's a pretty blue. They also made red ones to go with the other red bikes. And they use the Rolf wheels on the Trek bikes, the Le Mans, the Kleins, Gary Fisher's. So they used them on all their line, which was kind of interesting because you would see, our competitor had Le Mans and we had a Trek and a Klein, and they'd have the same Grupo on their Rolf wheels and Icon parts and old Tigger Shimano. So, it's same old story, different decade. And, you do this, makes those spokes all nice and shiny. Spokes are usually stainless steel. You don't have to worry about corrosion per se on those, but if this has a black coating on it, sometimes those degreasers will make them dull. Basically, it's an oil base, so if you put that ceramic slam back on there, or a ceramic coating, it makes them shiny again. So trick to that, if you have some spokes that dull to like that black copper kind of look, that's a quick way to fix that, to make it look good. Because we're all about looking good, right? Gotta look the part. Oh man, all right. So now we got a semi-gloss instead of dull, or semi-matte versus totally matte, protected rim. Okay, here's the other trick bit I just learned. The ceramic coating got onto the brake surface. So do we want that on there? Not really, because you're talking about a slick surface on a brake pad that you're trying to stop yourself. So the trick what I learned from one of you guys out there on YouTube going, hey, take some rubbing alcohol and rub the rim surface down, or the brake surface, and remove that ceramic slam. So, rubbing alcohol you will find in every bike shop. We clean disc brakes, all sorts of things with rubbing alcohol. So you just take a little bit on here, and I just wipe off the brake surface. And you can see it's definitely cleaning that brake surface from any dirt contaminant buildup from the brake pads. And when I do a tune-up, I'm also cleaning the brake pads, scuffing them a little bit to give you a better breaking that glazed seal to it. So here you go. You got the best of both worlds. You got the ceramic coating to protect the rim and the decaling and all that from UV protection and water damage and all that, but you also have a nice clean braking surface. So basically, this is the rear. You just rinse and repeat for the front. That's the difference. Ooh, on to the next thing. You're probably going, damn, Justin, really? That much? Wow, that goes a lot into a wheel. Yeah, I'm making it look easy and quick because I've done thousands of these, but here we go. You know, I forget to slow down and show in my videos because it would take forever. So here's a highlighted version of how to get the wheel back together with the tips and tricks that we do in the service department. So first off, well, I'm going to put the tire and tube on last. First, I'm going to put that cassette back on. Okay, the cassette. I don't like these dry. I like to put a layer of grease on these. Reason being is if you live anywhere, there's humidity. That combination of mixed materials, steel, alloy, whatever, can corrode and get stuck on there. Also, it aids to get it off easier. These are keyed, so there'll be one that's a little skinnier than the rest. One does not look like the other. Right here. It's right there. And this will be keyed as well. Campanoli is keyed as well as SRAM. Campanoli got to be tricky about this. Sometimes they're not blocked together like this. They're loose, so each piece comes, and their spacers are different. Look it up. Or when you take it off, make sure it's the exact same stack as you took it off. If you're going to be cleaning it or whatever, throw a zip tie around it to hold its position so you know where to start with to put it back on. Because you will go down that rabbit hole, and I heard the new 12 speeds may have the similar type issues. So that slides into the key portion, and the outside one will be keyed as well. And granted, they're not all that way, so they may vary, disclaimer. But in most cases they are keyed like so. And you want to get that to fit in there flush. Okay, bad old man eyes. Okay, there we go. Like so. And then you do the lock ring. And you basically, this one's the alloy lock ring, so you want to be careful because the free hub body that we just put this on is steel, and the lock ring on this is alloy. So what's going to break first? Oh, the alloy lock ring, right? This is a softer material. So you make sure you don't force it. Get it to slide in there. Not cross thread either. Kind of freely. Then you basically tighten it up. Not too tight, but you know, a good stiff wrench on there. Okay, that's the free hub or the cassette, what have you, that kind of thing. Okay, this is a free hub body that does, you can do a 7-speed on there with a spacer, 8, 9, 10 speed free hub body on this one. Cerium Mavic wheels or Mavic hubs, they have a 12-speed spacer or 11-speed spacer you can put on there to do 11-speed cassettes. But typically, if you want to upgrade this from a 9-speed to a 10-speed, you don't have to replace your wheels. Or if you want to downgrade to a single speed, they have a spacer thingy, whatever, on that. So little hub inside on that. And not all skewers are made the same. Nope, one's shorter than the other. The long one obviously goes through the back one. Well, maybe not so obvious. What I like to do with the skewer is take a little bit of Tri-Flow Superior Lube, a couple dots on the actual pivot here. That makes it more effective when it's clamping down. Do not lose your little skewer springs. And then, again, a little bit of light lube on here. It doesn't matter if it's stainless steel or titanium, what have you. This still can corrode inside there. And if you ever had a corrode skewer inside a hub, it is horrible. The quick release is on the non-drive side. Drive side means where the spokes are. Then you put the nut back on there. For the front hub, so a little bit trickier to know what's the non-drive drive side. There'll be logos sometimes on the hubs. You want to match them so they look the same direction when you're on the bike. Or if you don't have any of that, it doesn't really matter. So same kind of concept. You put the skewer on there, that kind of thing for the front. All right. Now last but not least, the tire. This one's called a wire bead because it's not folding. The folding one is usually a Kevlar bead tire. And we'll get scissors. Cut the tag off of that. Road bike tires can be directional, and this one is directional. Somewhere on here, it'll have a little arrow telling you what direction it needs to go. And once you identify that direction, this one's usually on the non-drive on the Continentals somewhere. And it'll tell you like, oh, you need to go that way. I'm like, okay. And of course, when you install it, you'll see the directional arrow and it'll be pointing the wrong way, which is pretty much everybody's fault of happening. But I know with Continentals, it's kind of like a V, you go for that direction. Okay, you got to use your brain here and figure out what directional means. Directional means when you're going forward, pedaling forward, the wheel's going forward, rotation. Will it be that detrimental if a forward momentum tire is put on backwards? Maybe a little bit. I wouldn't say it would be the end of the world. Back in the day, mountain bike tires, even today, they'll have tires that'll be directional, one for rear, one for front. The tread pattern will be different. On these guys, it's the same for road usually, same tread. So this one's 7x23, that's stamped right there. So you want to go by the logo of the tire where the valve hole is. Reason being is if you need to track down a flat, you know where the tire was, and if you have a tube that has a hole in it, you can double check what side. It'll kind of narrow it down and relating to the tire or the rim. So I like to put on the bead, one side of the bead first. You can just use your thumbs or you can use a tire lever. I'm not blocking a shot. So you have this one bead on, and then you proceed with the tube. So I just don't throw the tube in there like it is now. It's a flattened state. Ooh, long golf course. Like so. I like to add a little air to these just so they hold form. Take the valve core off, unscrew the press the valve out, and then take your pump, whoop, put it on the valve. Ooh, that wasn't me. That was the tube. Then you have holds form. You may need to replace some of the air pressure to put the tire on. I know we're going through the tire 101, but hey, why not? Put the valve core in, then you put your tube and you fold it into place. And when you're folding that tube, you want to get it over the rim well wall. It's a rim well. So you're not likely to pinch it. If that tube sticks out like here, you can actually pop out and pinch or explode and scare the heck out of you and everybody in the neighborhood. So now I got the tube. It's pretty much inside, easy to fold in, right? I usually do the bead around the valve core first, like so. Push the valve core up so it's not gapped underneath. Then proceed to go around the rim. You can use your tire lever or your thumbs. Sometimes you'll get a tire that's really stiff and hard to get on there because either the rim DI is different or the tire DI is different. And then you use your lever really gently. Make sure you don't pinch that tube as you're putting this on, like so. This also is another place where you can put Armor All to help seep that rim bead over, or get the bead over the rim, like so. Then you want to inspect it all the way around. Make sure it's seated. Then you proceed to air it up, a little at a time. Less is more when it comes to this. So get your valve core on there. Do a couple pumps so it kind of holds form. And then check your bead. And the bead is that line all the way around the rim. You want to make sure it's even all the way. If it's bubbled out, bam, you're going to give yourself a little heart attack. Air it up some more and check that bead. If you have that tricky bead that doesn't want to pop into place, whatever, Armor All again, you put a little bit inside there. That helps it lube it up to slide into position. So I had a lot of tires back in the day, some issues with that. So air pressure on this has a range. It'll be PSI, pressure per pounds per inch. And in that case, sometimes I'll just say the max. I think the max on this is like 120. For road tires, you can go down. There's a whole theory on air pressure. I usually on road tires just go around about 90 to 100. Depending if you're a heavier rider, you might want to go a little higher. If you're a lighter rider, you want to go a little bit lower. The idea, if you don't want too much pressure to make it too jarring, but you want to have the tire have a little bit of a give, that kind of thing. And once you're done, take your pressure off, valve core off, and then you tighten that grommet down, which is press to valve adapter, or press to valve. Then you get adapters if you need to use a compressor on that. And then this one doesn't have any grommet threads, it just has the valve core. So essentially, that's it. So yeah, wheel 101. Here's another thing that I kind of been enlightened with, and I'm always learning, is it says 700 by 23C. That is not standard sizing-ish in the industry, 25C, 30C, 28C, whatever, that's the width. But how they actually truly measure out sometimes is different on the particular different rim DIs as well as the tire brand themselves. So for example, you can have a road bike that says it'll go up to 28C width tire, but if you get a certain brand, I had a Victoria one once that ran a little bit bigger. When I had that 28C tire into that dropout, it was rubbing against the frame and the brake caliper. So between the rim itself and the tire, it was no bueno. So you got to keep that in mind. For most road bikes, old school road bikes that I usually work on, 23, 25s is usually the norm. Sometimes you can sneak in a 28, but no bigger than that because you'll be rubbing against the frame and that'll cause damage to the frame or otherwise to you as well if you get in a crash. So basically, try to keep within the parameters of what is suggested by the bike manufacturer or the frame. The rim, the tire diameter doesn't really determine by the rim. It's actually where it fits into in the frame. So keep that in mind too. So hopefully that really will make some sense-ish. Okay, bad dad joke. Sorry. Description, under the description, there's details of the tools I use and so forth, and also some verbiage of how to install a tire and do some various tasks, that kind of thing. Thank you for hanging out with me in the garage. I hope you learned something about wheels. I had a really wheel of a good time. Until next time, if it's nice in your neck of the woods, please go for a ride. Get that virtual ponytail, flap in the wind, forget about your troubles. Have a great day. Awesome. Check out these pictures in the sun with the ceramic slam. Wow, that's kind of cool. I can't stop doing it. Wow. Until next time, have a great day. Wow, look at that shine with that ceramic coating from lithium ceramic slam. You can use other ceramics at work, but I want to do a little test here and show how, if underwater, see how that just beads up? Well, with that ceramic slam or ceramic coating, the water will bead and basically fall off while you're riding. In addition to, if you get dirt and what have you, it just easily rinsed off with a light pressure of water from your hose or what have you. And then you just take a fiber cloth and it just cleans right off, like so. So that's why all the detail of adding extra ceramic coating helps contaminants be removed easily with rinsing, low lift, washing. In addition to, it has UV protection to save the stickers and that kind of thing, and so forth. But there you have it.